You started or want to start your business for freedom, fulfillment, flexibility, independence, security, and a dream lifestyle. You deserve all of the above, so go fucking get it.
I'm a couple months from a million, couple LLCs from a billion. Say 8 of them just to do so you must be fooled to think I'm gone.
Okay, here we go. So breaking up with self-sabotage and starting a love affair with life. So a lot of this is going to be around the mindset and the lifestyle practices to growing your confidence, and through that confidence, being able to monetize your passion. So before we do anything, I have to get you guys to put one thought process inside of your brain, okay? So you need to get this down before we move on to anything else. Okay, so here's the thing I need you to understand. Your brain and you are two completely different entities, okay? We all have a tendency to walk through life with this idea that our brains, our personalities, the way that we think, that's who we are. That's definitive of the you, the I am, etc. But here's an important distinction I need you guys to understand. Your brain is a computer that runs a system that is your personality. Your personality is just a collection of habits, okay? But you, all right, you are the controller of said computer and said personality system. Two completely different entities. It is hard to kind of make that separation because it's like my brain is me, it's inside, like who am I outside of my brain and my physical body? But it's important to understand at the very least that your brain and your personality is a system and you can control that system. So now with this understanding, we're gonna go into how to break up with self-sabotage, because this is going to require you as the controller to make changes to your brain and the system that is your personality, okay? All right, so first thing to understand, and we talk about this all the time, we are hardwired for survival. I'm not gonna go too deep into that. We have this cool thing called amygdala that was put there for a very good reason, because if we take it prehistorically, we had a lot of things to be aware of, and it was really hard to survive, from animals outside to diseases to not having enough food, harsh winters, not having shelter, et cetera, et cetera. Now, here's the only problem with this very powerful and useful tool. We no longer live in a scenario where those same threats are present, yet our brain doesn't know that. So our brain is still operating as though we need to be afraid of, an animal coming to eat us, or a harsh winter taking out half of our family, or a disease coming through and killing our crops, or whatever the case may be. We take that large of a fear and put it into posting on social media, or launching a business, or starting a conversation with a new person. The fear feels the same because our brain doesn't understand that we have different things that we are surviving against now, okay? Now, what does that have to do with self-sabotage? Self-sabotage is a natural, hear me when I say this, it is a natural and normal, I should have wrote normal, it is a natural and normal side effect of our hardwiring for survival. So the first thing to understand outside of that separation between your brain, your personality, and you is that your tendency to self-sabotage, which we'll talk about the symptoms in just a second, but your tendency to self-sabotage is not an indication that you are broken. It's not an indication that something's wrong with you. It's not an indication that you'll never make it. It's not an indication that you're traumatized beyond repair, okay? It is an indication that you are a human being having a natural reaction to something that happened in life, all right? And without an understanding of how your brain works, how the system of your personality works, without that understanding, you're unable to hack self-sabotage. But when we understand it, we can hack our brains just the same way anybody that played video games, you put cheat codes into the game, or whatever the case may be. You code certain things into a computer to make it go faster. Our brain systems work the same way, but we have to know how to do that coding. And we have to understand that that coding is required because of our hardwiring for survival. And another important, just caveat to know, just to have in your brain about that hardwiring for survival, because we were hardwired for that, and that was a protection mechanism, our brain is trained to remember negative experiences so that we can avoid them more than it is trained to remember positive experiences by nature, okay, scientifically. So it is our job to retrain and rewire this brain to find those positive experiences and make them equally as memorable and equally a driver in our actions instead of the negative experiences. All right. Now, let's talk about what self-sabotage really is. Self-sabotage is the brain's way of telling you that you're about to leave what's familiar and go towards what's unfamiliar. That's it, that's all. Like in its simplest form, it is your brain saying, hey, this is different, this is new, wait a minute. And then it urges you by some desire, some thought process, some whatever, to engage in actions that return you back to your familiar state. And that goes back to that survival mode. I need to do things that are the same to stay safe. And so we self-sabotage our life by putting ourselves in scenarios that we're used to, whether or not those scenarios are positive or negative. Because here's the thing, the brain, that computer working inside of you, it doesn't really understand positive or negative. It's just taking in information as to this is what you experienced and this is what you survived, so this must be safe. Right? So if you went through life as a child, not really trying new things or not putting your all into something, then as an adult, when you're like, okay, I'm gonna launch a business and I'm gonna give it my everything, I'm gonna work 24, all of that fizzles out because your brain is like, wait a minute, bitch, what are you doing? That doesn't sound safe. We don't do that. We've never done that before. And if you don't understand that, you end up self-sabotaging and then blaming yourself instead of being able to rise above that emotional trigger. All right. So self-sabotage in its simplest form is your brain saying, hey, that's unfamiliar and I want to go back to what's familiar. So I'm going to try and take control of you to drag you back to the familiar, no matter how fancy and pretty and lovely those desires look. That's why we can say we want to do things and we value these different things, but we don't take action towards them because we're fighting with that psychological thing that's happening inside our brains. All right, so self-aware symptoms to be aware of. So procrastinating on your dreams and your goals and desires that you actually value. So what I just talked about, let's say you really, really care about that business, but you haven't taken action on it in over a year. You really, really care about that relationship with that person, but you won't reach out to them, right? Returning to toxicity, even when you know better. So you know better, maybe you even left this situation and left this environment, but some way, somehow, you're finding yourself kind of creeping back in. You're answering the phone for that person again. You're going out with that person again. You're hanging out with that person, or you're going back to that environment. Or maybe, you quit your job and you were working on building your business, but now some opportunity and you're thinking about going back to that job again, or you're already back in it, right? Not pushing yourself to your fullest potential. You know that you can do better, but you're scared to do better. And instead of pushing yourself, you're just kind of doing the least, right? You're doing just enough to get by. You have a constant need for controlling everything around you. You get very uncomfortable when anyone else has control of the scenario or the situation around you. And you seek out proof and evidence to support your negative thoughts. So for example, if you grew up in a scenario where people leave you all the time, you may push people away so that it proves your point that people leave. You never really gave them an opportunity to stay. Or you may think that you aren't good enough to have X, Y, and Z. So when you start to get that thing, you start to think, oh, that only happened because I got lucky, or this person's just being nice, or you don't believe what people are saying about you because you are looking for evidence and for validation for the things that you already believe about yourself, all right? So self-sabotage is a way of the brain staying/keeping you in your comfort zone. Yes, it is a way of keeping you in your comfort zone, but I also wanna say a safe space, because I battle with that word comfort zone because my goal is to become comfortable with the discomfort that is growth. I can be in my comfort zone while being uncomfortable, but that safety net, which we're gonna talk about in a second, is a little bit of a different thing. And that's really where self-sabotage comes in. It's trying to keep you in this very illogical, but strongly felt safety net. Could it be tied into self-esteem? Yes, it could have a lot to do with self-esteem and just a misunderstanding of how to deal with that as an adult if that is something that you were embedded with as a child. All right, a few more symptoms that are a little bit harder to notice, but you may have. Blaming the outside world and or circumstances when things go wrong. So when things happen, it's the moon's fault, it's your parents' fault, it's society's fault, it's the white man's fault. Like, it's always somebody's fault when life happens to you, right? You have trouble stating what you need to those around you. So instead of speaking your needs to those that are around you to love and support you, you keep all of that to yourself and then convince yourself that no one's there for you and no one supports you, right? You choose to walk away from something just because it's not smooth. You hit a bump, you hit something that's just a little bit harder, a little bit difficult, and you're like, nope, I'm out. I'm done. This wasn't for me. If it was for me, then it would be easy, right? You avoid trying new things. If anytime someone invites you to do something new or try something, try new food even, or go to a new place and you're like, absolutely not, that is a form of self-sabotage. Refusing to ask for help, unrealistic expectations, perfectionism, all of these things are symptoms of self-sabotage, and I want to bring them to your awareness because the more that you recognize them, then the easier it is to maneuver them and to work with them, right? So the process of breaking up with self-sabotage that I've broken down, you want to understand, aligned, and act, okay? You're going to understand why she's here, because she's not here for no reason. And just the same way that any of my parents out there, anyone that's dealt with children, it is much easier, if a child is throwing a temper tantrum, it is much easier to get them to calm down when you understand them versus you just berating them, telling them to shut the fuck up, get over it, I don't have time for this. You're going to have a smoother time getting them to calm down if you show them that you understand and they can express whatever it is that they need you to understand versus trying to shut them up. That's going to be a longer process. Or even if they are the same length process, it's going to be a more difficult process on the other side. Same thing with yourself. You want to understand why your brain is doing what it's doing, why your personality is responding the way that it's responding, because that also allows you to have more compassion for yourself, okay? So that's understand. Second is align. You want to align your desires so you're able to outwit self-sabotage. So the reason self-sabotage is a natural reaction, and the difference between people that are able to maneuver through it and overcome it versus the people that get stopped by it is the strength of their desire on the other side, right? A lot of times, whatever goal we're trying to achieve in the moment doesn't align with our particular desire. So self-sabotage is a lot harder to overcome, maneuver, or sometimes even see, because that goal isn't really aligned with the true desires of our hearts, right? And we're gonna talk about the dangers of that misalignment between your heart, your goal, and your mind. All right, and then finally, you're gonna take action to overcome her. Let's get into why self-sabotage exists so you can recognize her, right? First and foremost, our childhoods, okay? All of us have various levels of trauma that have happened in childhood, and I'm not here to rank one better than the other. How it happened to you is how it happened to you, and that has an effect on the way that you maneuver life, and it has an experience on your tendency to self-sabotage. Now, everyone's childhood is different, and for me to try to uncover all the intricacies and all the different ways that childhood experiences could lead into self-sabotage, we would be here for weeks. So the one thing before I get into things that almost like are universal, I want you guys to understand when you leave this space and you have a broader awareness of self-sabotage and the ways that it's going to show up in your life, take the time when you become aware of it to maybe think back for a second. Does this tie back to something in my childhood? Did somebody tell me something? Did I have an experience at school? Did I have a traumatic experience with family? And sometimes it's not even a traumatic. It can be the tiniest little moments, okay? So for an example, for me, growing up, my father, with the best of intentions, no matter what I called him with, from grades to sports to something nice I did for someone else, it was always, oh, okay, but why didn't you do more? Or why wasn't it better? And it taught me growing up that nothing I did was good enough, so why even try? So I had this battle of doing just enough and deeming and telling myself that's all that I could do. And that was a form of self-sabotage. And I had to, sit with myself when those triggers would come or when things would get hard and tie that back to that, and then, go through a whole process that we're going to talk about in a second. So all of that to say, your childhood has a lot to do with this form of self-sabotage, or with self-sabotage in general. And one of the best ways is, as you become aware of it, start asking yourself, does this tie back to something that I experienced in childhood, or do I remember any moments of feeling this way in childhood? So that you can kind of reparent yourself and, look at that with the lens that you have today, not just the emotional reaction you had then. All right? Now, universal reasons why self-sabotage exists, mostly for all of us. All of you will probably resonate with all of, if not all of these, at least one of these, okay? So first, we're gonna go over the Goldfish Theory. Second, our misguided perception of self, the way we overemphasize the microcosms, the way that we underestimate being human, and the way that society has made us mentally lazy. So those might not make sense right now, but they will in a second. The Goldfish Theory. Did you guys know that a goldfish in a tank tends to stay about between 1 to 2 inches long? We've all seen goldfishes in tanks, right? However, if you take that same goldfish and you put it in the ocean where wild goldfish live, it'll typically grow between 4 to 8 inches, but it can grow all the way up to 16 inches. Now, what does that mean? That is 8 to 16 times more growth from a simple change in environment. All right, so the fish went from being surrounded by a tank, so I'm only gonna get big enough to still have space to maneuver in here, to, oh, I have in a whole ocean, I can get as large as I want, right? The same process happens inside of our brains. The things that we think, the things that we believe, the things that we allow to run in a program unconsciously create a box around our brains, almost around our whole aura, energy, life, okay? It determines what you can and can't have in this existence. And the more thoughts that you have that belong to other people or don't serve the version of you that you want to become, that box holds you in just like the fish tank. However, when you go through this mindset work, when you work on your nervous system, when you take the time to think about the things that you think, then you are breaking open that fish tank and putting yourself in an ocean. So in simplest terms, your brain is either a fish tank or an ocean. And we'll talk about in a little bit how to choose the ocean. But what this has to do with self-sabotage is a lot of us build our brains like the fish tank, and that hyper drives self-sabotage to make sure that we are protected in that little space versus being in the ocean, being able to explore, feeling safe to see new things, to be as big as we need to be because there's so much space for us to take up, right? Same concept, they ran this with elephants. So they tied elephants to trees from being like baby, tiny elephants at the point where they couldn't break that rope. They would grow, become full-blown elephants. And by this point, they should be able to literally snap that rope in the tree that it's tied to and walk clean the fuck away into the pasture and trample over the people that are there and never to be seen again. But they don't. Why? Because they were taught from a young age that they could not move. They maybe tried to break free a few times and they couldn't do it. And it was like, oh, okay, this is my life. This is where I'm supposed to be. This is something that I can't do. So then it lived its life that way. The difference between us and elephants is that we are able to actually look back at the scenarios that made us feel tied to a tree or made us feel like we were in a fish tank and change the way that our brain thinks about things so that we can change the way that we operate in life, right? And I think that's something that is so taken for granted and so just, we see it with no reverence. We treat it with no respect. At the end of the day, just like the dog, the cat, and the bird, we are animals out here, but we are the only ones with that type of power and that type of control to create life. But just like I posted this meme today, it was like, we have the internet to do all this stuff. And instead of doing all the amazing things you can do with it, you want to spend your time complaining, right? Same concept. We have all of this cool fucking brain power inside of our head. And instead of spending our time working with it, we want to spend our time complaining about why life isn't going our way or just accepting the fact that, oh, that's just the way the life is. have more respect for life, for yourself, for God, for the fact that something more powerful than you is in charge of the fact that you're breathing, right? Okay, number 2, second universal why behind self-sabotage being triggered. It's our misguided perception of self. And this is what I mean by this, or the simplest way I could think of explaining it. Most of us exist in one of the first 2 spaces with the red axis. We have one eye on the past and one eye on the future, meaning this is the space where we know better, but we don't do better, right? We're looking at the past for a validation and definition of who we are and what we're capable of, but we're looking to the future as to what we want to do and what we want to become capable of. And we're just lollygagging in the present. Like, damn, I really want this, but this is who I am and this is what I can and can't do. So where do I go and what do I do? And you end up in a perpetual cycle of self-sabotaging any attempt to make it over here to the future, right? Now, even worse than that is some of us have both eyes on the past. And this is where not only have we accepted the least in life, but this is those people that'll say a lot of times, damn, if I had just done X, Y, and Z then, or if I had, if so-and-so hadn't done this when I was X age, I would have made it thus far, or whatever. We've just got our eyes in the past, or those people that are still wearing that high school ring at 55 and talking about the play that they did at 18 at the high school state championship. Both eyes are on the past, right? We have no view of the future, or all of our best days are in the past, right? And that creates a lot of self-sabotage because you think that, I've lived my best life. There's no more best for me to live. So that box becomes, I can't have anything better than what I've already had, all right? Now, the place that we wanna be, the sweet spot that propels you forward and that allows you to hack that self-sabotage trigger, that natural normal reaction, is one eye on the present, all right, and one on the future. Meaning, I am present and aware of my actions, my thoughts, my habits, my behaviors in this present moment, and I'm also aware of where I want to be in the future and what behaviors, what beliefs, what thoughts, what actions I want to have. And more important than that, that's aligned with my heart, so I'm actually driven past those natural triggers, which we'll talk about that in a second. But those are the first 2 places we either land is one eye on the past and one on the future, so we're just stuck in limbo, or we got both eyes on the past, like, I wish I had done X, Y, and Z earlier, and we're looking to get to that place where we can bring our one eye here. We're focused on where we are right now, and we're also focused on where we're going, okay? Thinking about driving a car. You're not gonna drive a car in reverse. You're not gonna drive a car on swivel, right? You're gonna drive a car aware of what's right in front of you and where you're going. Same concept. Okay, number 3, emphasizing microcosms. We tend to use small moments to define life. And that goes back to the survival mode where our brains tend to highlight those moments that have negative reactions or negative emotions so that we can avoid them. And keep in mind, you guys, that to our brain, a negative reaction or a negative moment is not inherently a negative thing in life. I'm not solely talking about, a car accident or trauma in childhood or an argument or whatever. It can literally be as simple as I went to post something on Instagram and I was really uncomfortable, or I did post it and I got low views. And we emphasize that microcosm. And in our brain, that's a negative thing that we need to avoid now, right? But what I mean when I say emphasizing the microcosms is we take these moments that maybe, it happened one time, maybe it happened 10 times, maybe it happened 50 times, but we decide that that thing is the definition of life and it's now unchangeable, right? Maybe every time you try to reach out to a specific person, they don't answer the phone. And that happened 3 times, and now you stopped calling them because, they just don't answer when I reach out. They must have X, Y, and Z, and da-da-da. When it's really not that deep. Maybe they had a busy week or a busy month or whatever the case may be, right? So what we have to understand when it comes to making this breakup with self-sabotage is recognize those moments where we have made those microcosms this macro view of the world. And that's looking like these all or nothing statements where I'm always experiencing this. This is always happening to me. I never experience this. I never get that. Those types of things. We need to train our minds to remember and understand that every circumstance we encounter is changeable, okay? Every single one is changeable. And quite honestly, until you've had literally by science and statistics, because we're also making decisions with very limited knowledge. Like, we're making decisions that we don't have the knowledge to make. If you haven't done it like 1,500 times, there's no way for you to decide that that is a proven to happen every single time. Okay? So training your brain to recognize those moments where you are emphasizing the microcosm and reminding yourself that it's a microcosm and there is a big macro life outside of that. And then number 4, I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, and this goes into why self-sabotage exists in the fact that we take these things for granted, or we forget these things. These are things that we are capable of, and we just forget them all the time. The first one is that we learn daily. I don't know when it happens in adulthood, but at some point we just decide that like we're supposed to get it and have it together. And like when we try things or go to do things, we're just supposed to be able to do it right. Because, you know, I'm an adult and I can adult properly, or whatever the hell the idea is. I'm not really sure, but we forget this concept that we're learning. Every single day is a new experience with new information, and you are allowed to learn. And when we recognize that and we train our brain, our personality, and more importantly, our nervous system to have a good relationship with learning, with trying, even with failing as an adult, you can self-sabotage is to the door. We don't know you anymore, okay? Second thing we take for granted, we're miracles. You guys, the fact that you are here alive in this era, even here right now under the sound of my voice, is nothing short of divine timing that's beyond our comprehension. None of us, no matter what your religion, your spirituality, your background, upbringing, what you believe and what you don't believe, none of us can define the reason as to why we wake up with breath every single morning, the reason as to why some people don't wake up and we have no scientific reasoning behind it, and the reason as to why that particular freaking sperm out of the 10 millions of whatever made it to that particular egg to make you at the time that your parents did what they did. Like, all of that is fucking miraculous. And we take that for granted, and it creates self-sabotage because we forget how powerful we are. I don't give a fuck about what you did when you grew up. I don't care about how many times you failed up to this point. None of that is relevant. That's what I mean when I say one eye on the present, okay? There are people that have started from, like, if you feel like you started at level 0, there are people that started on negative 2,039 and still made it to the top. There are people that started to the top and dropped their asses to negative 2,039. So those past experiences have nothing to do with it. It's the miracle of your human existence and the power that you have within your own brain and body. That reverence creates so much drive and so much power to move beyond that self-sabotage. Because the only way to move beyond it is to have a desire, a drive, a belief that's strong enough for you to do the uncomfortable things that are required to overcome self-sabotage, okay? And then the last one, which I basically just described, is levels are illusions. We falsely believe the way that we start life is indicative of how we must end it. And if we don't believe that consciously, we move that way subconsciously. And we move that way subconsciously through a lot of conditioning in society. It's very natural, and not a lot of people talk to us about how to rewire that, why we even need to rewire it, or that we even need to rewire it, okay? So these are things that if you don't get anything else from today, I want you to remember. You learn every single day. Anything that you don't know now or you can't do now that you need to be able to do to achieve this dream that you have, you can learn it, babe. It's not that deep, all right? Understand that the fact that you are here in this existence, in life right now, breathing, living, thinking, that's fucking miraculous. Don't waste that time. And stop looking at where everybody else started from where they didn't, or where you even fucking started. None of that matters, okay? What matters is where you are right now. One of my favorite quotes, and I might butcher it a little bit in this moment, but what matters more than where you are, what also matters more than where you are right now is the trajectory of where you're going. And you can only know the trajectory of where you're going by taking a look at where you are right now. Because your past isn't going to tell me. If you were to ask me, tell me where I'm gonna be in 6 months, tell me how I'm gonna be living my life, tell me what my business is gonna look like, I'm not gonna ask you shit about your past. I'm gonna ask you about what habits how do you spend your days right now? That's going to tell me where you're going. Okay? All right. 5, we have normalized mental laziness, and it's just a fact. 99% of us are probably mentally lazy in some way, shape, or form and don't even recognize it, because we live in a world of if there are obstacles, it's just not for me, or somebody's blocking me. When they piss me off or hurt my feelings, I'm just gonna cut them off. I'm not gonna have an adult conversation or try to work it out. If people supported me, then I do more. So we're waiting for that outside validation or somebody to call us and tell us to do X, Y, and Z. We literally live for external validation and or motivation, which is the definition of mental laziness. If you are not able to work within your own brain to drive it into action, there's nothing more to it. But we've normalized that. And in normalizing it, we've made an epidemic of self-sabotage without even realizing it. Because breaking up with self-sabotage is truly going to be about overcoming that mental laziness. And in overcoming that, I don't want that to be looked at as this, oh my God, it's gonna be so hard. Well, why would I do that? Da, da, da. You're looking at it for the power that it's going to give you, for the control that it's going to give you, right? So the practice of avoiding self-sabotage is to fall in love with better. It is the process of training your brain to see growth as safe. Okay, so breaking up with self-sabotage, the practical steps to a lifestyle change. We're gonna talk about the mental process, like what's actually happening in your brain at the moment that you're about to self-sabotage. We're gonna talk about the physical process, because I feel like a lot of people skip that part. It's not just the mindset of saying affirmations and looking in the mirror, da, da, da. There is a physical reaction to change and growth and doing new things. And if you don't know how to deal with that response within your body, you'll physically get stuck, right? If you've ever had that feeling of like you really want to do something, but you just can't make yourself get up, or you try to do something, but your breath gets short, your hands start shaking, palms get sweaty, like any type of, sometimes you even physically get sick. I've seen that happen where somebody is, ready to level up and change their life, and they're super excited and new opportunities are coming in, and boom, now they're physically sick, like head's hurting, or they get a cold and they're down and out for like a week and a half. All of those are physical responses to you maneuvering these things, right? We're going to talk about the heart and mind alignment, but more importantly, the cautions of misalignment. And we're going to talk about how to do hard things, because that process of falling in love with being better, training your brain to see growth as safe, that's going to require doing hard things. But you can do hard things, and we're going to talk about that. Okay, so the mental process, when you are actually like about to self-sabotage or actively self-sabotaging, this is typically very simplified, okay? Our brains are super complex. What I like to do is take the things that I've learned about the complexities of the brain from much smarter people than me and make it understandable without losing its essence. So very, very simplified, but process, right? There's a trigger. You have a feeling of discomfort that urges you to return to an old behavior, right? So let's say you haven't been consistent with posting, you saw something motivating, you got super excited, and you're like, boom, starting tomorrow, starting Monday, whatever it is, I'm gonna post every single day, da, da, da. And the trigger when that day comes is, okay, you go to post it and you feel like really uncomfortable. Your brain starts thinking about, well, what if I don't keep up with it? What about tomorrow? What caption am I gonna put? What if people don't like it? What if this isn't a hook? What if they're gonna wonder where I was? How do I cut, da, 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 right? And your brain is triggering all those thoughts because it just wants you to go back to not posting, because that was the safe pattern that we created, right? Now, the way to hack this process, because normally that happens and we just go into autopilot, and autopilot can look like getting distracted and just scrolling through your phone until, it's hours later and you don't post, calling a friend to get like extra validation and getting into a whole conversation of nitpicking apart your project until, oh, I have to do more work to put it together, or, oh, I need to get more prepared. There's a lot of different like automatic responses. And again, this is going to come back to your awareness of when these triggers are happening to see the way that you respond to it, but just a few to give you guys an idea. So trigger happens, And what we want to happen next is the awareness, right? Your awareness that this is your body's natural response to change, so that you're able to, instead of allowing your brain to just run back to its old program, you're able to choose an action that starts a new program, okay? So trigger, that feeling of discomfort, that's like alarm, ooh, we're going towards something unfamiliar, I don't like it. And turning off autopilot with that awareness that says, okay, I hear you, I understand, but here's the thing, babe, you're not in danger. Nothing's gonna happen to you. Your life is perfectly fine. So then we go into the choice. And the choice you make now that you are responding to this trigger with awareness, not on autopilot, okay? And we're gonna get into what those choices can look like when we talk about doing hard things. But essentially, that is the space where you choose to take a step towards your new programming that you want to have, or you make that choice to revert backwards. But that awareness, that space, that can't be undone. And the powerful thing about that is now it's nobody's problem, nobody's control but yours, right? The one thing about blaming people or blaming circumstances is that you're giving away your control. You don't have any control over changing people around you, or maybe even changing the circumstances based on other people's behavior. All you have control over is yourself. So with this level of awareness and that choice, now you have the control. You have the power to choose where you want to go from here and what you want to experience, okay? So trigger, we cut off autopilot with that sense of awareness. We talk to our bodies like, all right, baby, you're good. It's okay. Maybe some breathing work. We're gonna get into a little bit of that in a second. And then we go into the choice. What action, what movement are we gonna take to step forward into our new programming, our new belief, our new thought process, our new actions, behaviors, or habits, and not into the old ones. The best way to do this, you guys, embrace sensitivity. Okay, this is something that I am a huge advocate for, probably because I was the kid that was told over and over and over again as a child that I was too sensitive, and I had to learn as an adult to see my sensitivity as a power, because it really it weakened me. It made me feel like I just couldn't be an adult. I wasn't good enough. I was broken, all these different things. But that sensitivity, what it really means and what's happening for me, and what I hope you start training yourself to allow, because it really is natural. But we end up putting up a lot of guards because society doesn't really create a safe space for that sensitivity, and we're not taught how to create that safe space within ourselves. But sensitivity is nothing more than your awareness of the changes in your surroundings or your changes within yourself so that you can adapt accordingly, okay? The definition of survival of the fittest is the most adaptable survive, the most adaptable thrive, the most adaptable win. If you want to be the most adaptable, you embrace that sensitivity. So you're aware, how do I feel when I walk in this space? How do I feel when I think this? How do I feel when I'm around this person? How do I feel when I take this action or behavior? Right? Because a lot of times we move on autopilot and we do things that don't even feel good to us. But because we're not aware of those slight changes and those subtle changes in our body and our mood and our thought process, we're just looking up like, damn, I got an attitude and I don't even know why. You didn't have that sensitivity or that awareness at that trigger point to say, oh, I just heard this. I just saw this. I just had this thought. And when you have that awareness, that's how you catch self-sabotage in its tracks. All right. Think about self-sabotage as something rolling down a hill, or like the law, energy in motion stays in motion, right? If you catch self-sabotage while it's already rolling down the hill, all you can really do at that point is move out the way, let it roll by, and try again, okay? But if we catch it, and that's how we end up in those 2 step forwards, 10 steps back little dance that we end up doing, right? But if you want to be able to stop something, if you don't want that to have to do that process over and over again, you got to catch that ball before it even starts rolling down the hill, and put it up, kick to the side, do whatever you want to do with it, blow it up, a little TNT, whatever floats your boat, right? So embrace that sensitivity. Understand that all it means is that you are aware of how you feel and how certain situations change how you feel and how you think, because you are also aware of the power that you hold within your own thoughts and feelings. And you respect that power enough to take action based on that awareness. Okay? Now, it's not just a mental game. All right? This is a mental and physical game. One of the things that I heard while I was preparing for this, and I was listening to just different scientists and psychologists and even mindset coaches talk about self-sabotage. I think Joe Dispenza said it. He said, a relaxed heart equals an awake brain, which means you have control of your life. Because our brains, basically the conscious part that's making decisions, goes to sleep when our heart doesn't feel safe. Because I've got to do all I can to protect my heart. I don't have any extra brain power to take control of anything else. Right? But when my heart is safe, it's like the difference between children that were raised in a safe, secure environment and children that were worrying about their next meal. Those children that were worrying about their next meal as an adult, this conversation that we're even having about mindset and about, think about your thoughts and your behavior, there's going to be a very real physical reaction to that because their heart doesn't feel safe enough. Because bitch, I didn't know where my next meal was going to come from. But a kid who was, safe, secure, and had like creative freedom and wasn't really thinking about all of those different things, they're going to have that awareness and that control to be like, oh, okay, I'm trying something new. It's a little uncomfortable, but I can do that, right? And I think that even though the levels are an illusion and it doesn't matter, both of those people, both of those children are equally as capable and have equal right in getting to whatever pinnacle of success that they desire. The difference between those, even though levels are an illusion, I think it's important to recognize that difference because there are different paths that have to be taken to the top. This kid over here that didn't really have all of that background of, not feeling safe and doesn't have, a heart that is not relaxed, they are going to have a much different road going up to the top than somebody that has that background, has that heart that isn't relaxed, because before they get to the top, they're gonna have to deal with that heart, deal with that pain, or they're always going to feel that lack. They're always going to feel that fear. And even if you do get it to the top with that brokenness, you're going to be up there with that same fear and that same idea of I'm not good enough, I can't have enough, I'm gonna lose it all one day. Right? So it's important to understand that there is a mental and physical aspect when your heart isn't in a relaxed space, where your heart isn't in a safe space. So a few ways to make sure that you're implementing the physical side into the mental side. Changing your environment, okay? The environment around you, both people and places, it physically affects your energy. And when you are constantly putting yourself in situations where you have to be on the defense, whether, that means your family back home, those people that knew you in high school or knew you as a kid growing up or whatever, they always think that, you're an angry person, but that's not who you are anymore. And every time you go back there, you have to go on the defense. Like your heart is no longer in a relaxed space, and constantly putting yourself in that energy fucks with your nervous system to the point where you won't even have to go back into that environment, but you'll tense up like you're going back into that environment because that's the conditioning that you've now set for yourself. The same thing can happen with your work environment. And I know that, maybe it's not realistic for you to say, fuck your job and quit right now, but you've got to look at and find ways, if that's not an option, to make yourself feel safe in that space so that you're not constantly triggering your nervous system into, I gotta be on the defense, so that your brain completely shuts down and goes to sleep, working on that autopilot to make sure that you're safe, right? We've all seen it in movies when war movies, cop movies, whatever, even doctor movies, when some trauma, when something happens, people are shooting at you, they're not thinking about their surroundings, what's happening, what they're feeling, any of that. They are literally on autopilot. Their brain is taking over activity to keep them safe. We do that same thing without the same threat. And we have to recognize that and be sensitive to those environments and those people so that we can make the necessary changes. Second, breath work is your best friend, okay? As you come into those spaces where you you're aware now, it's gonna be a little uncomfortable, guys. I'm gonna go ahead and let you know, because you chose to sit here with me live, or if you're watching the replay, we have opened up things in your brain and opened up awarenesses that can't go back. And when those moments happen, it's going to be a little uncomfortable, but you know that and you're prepared for that. That's the difference between this time and however many times you tried it before. So in those moments when you feel that discomfort, breath work is a really good thing to try. It's not a 100% certain thing that works for everybody, and it's not necessarily to make you feel better in that moment. The goal of that breath work, the goal of any mindset or nervous system work, is for you to be able to take action so that you feel better after taking the action, knowing like, oh shit, okay, I did it. I took that step. It's not for you to feel better in that moment. And if you do it with the idea that I'm going to feel better in that moment, when you don't feel better in that moment, you're no longer going to take action. So that's important to understand. Okay. Third thing, no matter how uncomfortable it is, take the smallest step you can forward. Okay, I keep using social media as an example. I don't know why I'm on that tonight, but we'll run with that. We'll continue to run with that. So let's say, you're deciding, all right, tomorrow I'm going to start posting on my story, and you haven't been posting for forever. And you go to post on your story tomorrow, and like you pull up that camera and you look at yourself and you're like, what the fuck? Like you literally just have a whole little glitch in your system. Okay, take the smallest step you can forward. Maybe we don't post it, but right now we can go ahead, record the video, save it to drafts. I was listening to another podcast, and she's like a wealth energetics coach, and something that she works on with her clients that struggle with showing up on social media. Her name is Jamie C. If you want to check her out, Jamie with an IE and then like C, like the ocean. But she had one of her clients literally show up every day on social media like she would, but she saved everything to drafts. So it gave her it relieved the pressure of, oh shit, people are gonna see this. What are they gonna think about me? Or how many views am I gonna get, or da-da-da. And it allowed her nervous system to make a habit of creating, right? So that the next step, she's already got the creating down. It'll give her a little more juice, a little more energy to then go through the process of, okay, I can post now, right? So whatever it is, take that smallest step forward. 4, I believe, do something that makes you uncomfortable daily. All right. So again, remember, I said the breakup with self-sabotage is about learning to fall in love with better. It's about training your brain to know that growth is safe. So when you do something that makes you uncomfortable every single day, it starts to train your brain to be like, oh, I'm surviving this over and over. I'm good. We do this. So that when you come to those uncomfortable situations with mostly are, growth opportunities, those spaces where you feel like you're not ready yet, you have the confidence to go for it because your brain feels safe in your ability to be uncomfortable. And last but not least, morning routines, okay? I'm gonna continue harping on this. You wanna start your day taming the animal. That's how Joe Dispenza explains it. But remember at the beginning, we talked your brain, computer system, hardwired to do junk. It's been hardwired for years without your awareness. The best way for you to start rewiring and make this breakup with self-sabotage is first thing in the morning, spend your first few minutes taming your brain, so to speak, or telling your brain, telling your mind, telling your body what it is that you want to feel, how you want to experience life, what thoughts you want to think that day, what you need to be aware of. All right, what do I need to pay attention to today to make sure that I am aware of my self-sabotage tendencies? I'm aware of the moments where I could choose growth, but I'm falling backwards, or whatever the case may be. And the reasoning behind doing it in the morning is that's the space where your heart and your brain are the most relaxed. If you can catch those first few minutes before you pick up your phone, before you start going through X, Y, and Z to kind of sit with those thoughts, it goes deeper into your subconscious, which allows it to go longer throughout your day and have a longer lasting effect. All right, so those are great ways to tie the mental into the physical. All right, we're almost there, guys. I think we're on like the last 2. So I'm going to go over this one pretty quickly. Heart and mind alignment, okay? And breaking up with self-sabotage, if your heart and your mind are misaligned, and what I mean by that is those goals, plans, and ideas you have in your head are misaligned with the true things that you actually value and care about in life, self-sabotage is going to be a reoccurring situation, okay? Because there's not enough drive, there's not enough energy, there's not enough excitement to even deal with the physical and mental shit that is self-sabotage, okay? So heart and mind alignment, but more importantly, the dangers of misalignment. So what that means, what you believe and what you desire influence your actions, right? What you think you can do is going to influence the actual actions that you take. What you desire in life is going to influence the actions that you take. When what you desire is not aligned with your beliefs, then you find yourself in this constant tug of war, right? That 2 steps forward, 10 steps back dance, because you're putting equal effort in opposite directions. Okay? Because when you believe that I want to be super wealthy and I want to be a millionaire, but you have a program running in the back of your head that's saying money is the root of all evil, or I'm not worthy of this, or whatever, you are putting equal energy in opposite directions. And what's that going to do? It's going to have you standing in the middle going stir fucking crazy, because even though you're doing things and you're trying things, you're standing in the same spot, like spiraling in this hole. Right? So having that alignment looks like the goals, plans, and desires that I have align with what I truly value. Like achieving them would actually make me happy. Fuck everybody else outside. It doesn't matter what your mom thinks, what your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your kid. It doesn't matter what any of them want for you. Achieving this is going to give me joy, peace, and excitement inside of my own heart and soul, right? And then with that, what type of thoughts, beliefs, and actions or behaviors do I have to be that person? That's how you get that alignment. 2 simple questions. What do I give a fuck about? And what do I have to think and believe to be able to have that? And the really cool thing about beliefs is beliefs are nothing more than practiced thoughts. You can choose what you believe. I don't care what it is that you believe right now, or who told you to believe it, or how deeply ingrained it is in your brain, body, and spirit. If that does not serve the vision that you truly value, that belief's gotta go. And the way that we get rid of a belief is we replace it with another one, right? So for example, I literally choose to believe that human existence, God, creator, whoever put us here, you didn't put me here for a mediocre life. You put me here for the best of the best. And that belief drives action. And I have that belief because I need to have that belief to have the type of lifestyle or the value vision that I have, okay? So beliefs are nothing more than practiced thoughts. You can choose what you want to believe. Last but not least, we're gonna close it out with this. You can do hard things. It's how we grow. 5 ways that you can both prepare for the journey of breaking up with self-sabotage and avoid some little pitfalls. Number 1, we talked about this already a little bit, practice low risk, uncomfortable activities. So an example of that is creating social media content, but not posting it yet. The thing about that though, is you have to have a deadline for those activities or when you're gonna take it up to the next level. So are you gonna do that for 2 weeks and then start posting? Are you gonna do it for 4 weeks and then start posting? Whatever it is, practice low risk, uncomfortable activities, but give yourself a deadline. Again, that's gonna start that training of your brain of I can do hard things, I can do new things. When you catch yourself playing the what if game, well, what if this doesn't work? What if that happens? What if blah, blah, blah? I want you to also play the even if game. Okay, even if that happens, this is what I can do to deal with that, or this is what I'm gonna learn, or this is why I should still do it, okay? Every time you catch yourself playing what if, you gotta start practicing even if. You are not going on this journey for the results. This is number 3. You are going on this journey for who you're becoming. When you start training yourself to do things for who it's making you, not the external results that you're getting, you are much more likely to stay the path through those moments in those areas where you're not exactly seeing results, or to stay the path where you have to change course because now you have new information that you're working with, right? Number 4, assume imperfection. Assume imperfection. You're gonna fail, you're gonna fuck up, you're going to, all types of stuff is going to happen. assume the imperfection beforehand. That way you're not surprised. No need to beat yourself up. You knew this was gonna happen. And even better, if you wanna take it a step further, prepare for the imperfection. How are you gonna respond to it? How are you gonna grow through it? Assume the imperfection and be okay with it, all right? And the way that you are okay with that is going back to those beliefs that you have and the knowledge that is the truth of the power of being human, okay? And then the last one, and this is more to like help you avoid a pitfall, avoid tempting but misaligned opportunities. Because a lot of times without realizing it, that can throw us back into cycles of self-sabotage. So what that looks like is maybe you have a, big dream or a business goal that is a few years down the line, and there's work that you need to be putting in now, but there's also money to be made now. And this new opportunity that's gonna take more hours from you, but bring in more money is coming in. And you're now tempted between this decision of, do I keep my hours on this thing that I'm building that I really care about and value for the next few years, or do I give these hours away? And I can't tell you the answer to that question, because it matters as to what you value the most, and it also matters what season you're in, because your values may change per season, but you just need to be aware that a lot of times when you're going through this process of growing and changing, you may also face opportunities that are not aligned with your long-term goal, but they seem valuable, sparkly, and pretty right now. Putting it all together, recognize your tendency to self-sabotage. We all do it. It's super normal. Stay sensitive so that you'll recognize her and you give yourself the chance, the opportunity to choose differently, okay? Make your desires strong enough to take actions. Go for things that you actually care about so that you're driven to bitch slap self-sabotage when she tries you, all right? And then fourth, just take action. This isn't just about today. This is a practice for every single day. I have one little exercise I can close this out with if I haven't taken up too much of you guys' time. I was trying to make it under an hour today, but I was really excited about this one, so I had a lot to say. All right, so answer the following, okay? This is going to help you take those steps towards breaking up with self-sabotage. Goal 1, what goals do you have for this year? And do a heart check. Do you actually care about those? Do you value those, okay? 1, goals for this year. 2, what does achieving those goals mean for you? It's not just, ooh, I wanna sell $10,000 in X, Y, and Z. I want to have 1 million subscribers on so-and-so, What does having that mean for you, okay? How does it feel? What type of experiences do you get to have that you don't get to have right now? How does it change your life and the life of those around you, okay? And then the third one, this is the most important, but you have to answer the first 2 to get to the third one. What does that version of you that's achieved all those things, what do they believe? What does that person believe? When you get that vision in your head of that best version of you that's living your best life, being cozy, creating, owning, and selling anything that you want to the capacity that you want it, bank account is good, you're going to brunch on random Tuesdays because that's what you feel like doing, what type of beliefs does that person carry? What do they think about life? What do they think about themselves? And are those beliefs that you are practicing now? Because if you aren't, then you're gonna be self-sabotage's bitch. That's just the fact of the matter. You're going to have to understand what you need to believe to become that best version of yourself, okay? If you haven't yet today, go ahead and wrap those arms around yourself or give yourself a pat on the back little cheek kiss, forehead kiss, whatever it is, for being present here tonight and everything that you did today that brought you to this moment of choosing to sow into your mindset, choosing to walk by faith and take action on something that you may or may not see immediate results on, but you have enough belief in yourself and your own vision to show up for you. And that is no small feat. So wrap them arms, pat on the back, kiss. If y'all have partners in the house, husbands, wives, girlfriends, boyfriends, tell them to come give you a kiss because you deserve it. Thank you, baby. All right, I am going to let you beautiful, beautiful people go. Remember to do your homework, answer those questions, and just stay aware, stay sensitive, and be great. I love you guys. Yeah.
This is where I wanna be. COSI head to my